and welcome back to the Entertainment Vortex. This week was a bit of a special week because we actually traveled specifically to find a showing of Sorry to Bother You. This is a movie we watched the trailer of and we were very interested in. It seemed very unique and it looked funny and it looked very surreal. So we wanted to see this movie, especially going up against Skyscraper, which neither of us were really that interested in. So we drove about 40 minutes to see this movie. And let me tell you, the first half of this movie was really, really good. And by saying that, you can probably assume that the second half of the movie was really bad. This movie, about halfway through, goes full Cronenberg. You never go full Cronenberg, unless you are Cronenberg. It gets really weird, like really weird. There's a scene in the movie where it happens and everybody in the audience is just kind of looking at each other. Did that just happen? Like, Are we still watching the same movie? And then from that point forward, it's just insane. Like, just absolutely insane. So, it's almost like I should give this movie 2 scores. The first half of the movie gets a great score, and the second half of the movie just gets a giant question mark. Because that's what it felt like. The second half of the movie didn't make any sense at all. Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like there's a joke and everyone's laughing and you're the one person that's outside the joke? Well, looking at the critical reviews of this movie, I feel like I'm that one person standing on the outside of the joke. Well, me and everybody else in our showing. It was just odd.
I saw the trailers and I instantly thought, yeah, this is a movie that totally is in my wheelhouse. Just weird enough for me to really grab onto this and say, oh yeah, that's the type of genre that speaks to me outside of, things from like Marvel and all that good stuff. Early on in this movie, I was jazzed. There are a lot of really snappy jokes and one-liners and like the banter back and forth between the characters is really, really where this movie shines. As it kind of goes along, it adds these more surreal elements, and there are all these little Easter eggs and all these different things that you can enjoy. Little nods to directors like Stanley Kubrick and Martin Scorsese and some of the way that they choose to make the scenes and the way that they use the camera. And then at about the halfway to the 2/3 of the way through the film, it just takes sharp left turn after sharp left turn and you just don't know what you're watching anymore. I felt like I was on a bad acid trip and I've never touched this stuff in my entire life, and it was not in a good way. Something that I never thought that I would actually see on screen, especially in a movie that's actually really loved by the critics and felt like it's done its purpose as far as what it does for the film, and I just don't feel like it did that after that point in the film. Like it starts to slowly decline into just madness. They're not pleasing to watch. They're off-putting, to the nth degree. It's just not something that I enjoyed.
Let's talk about some of the details. The actors are fantastic. The gentleman that plays the main part in the movie did an amazing job. He's very charismatic. You believe he is going through what he's going through. It has this weird flow to the movie and the dialogue and the way they decided to shoot it. Kind of a fast-paced flow of consciousness that he did fantastically. You can follow his character, you can follow his thoughts, he does good facial acting, and I was very impressed with him. I look forward to seeing him in other projects. His supporting cast was full of quite a few known people that we've seen in quite a bit. The young lady that plays Valkyrie from Thor Ragnarok is in there, as well as the gentleman that plays Glenn in Walking Dead. These are all faces that are recognizable, and they do a great job. Their parts are interesting. You're kind of trying to figure out where they're going. Where they go is really weird, but you're trying to figure out where they're going in the first half, and I really appreciated what they brought to the roles. I feel this was very well casted. The gentleman that plays the leader of the Worry Free Company was also very well done. He's a great actor that did a good job bringing kind of an off-putting edge to his character. He did a very good job bringing that to life, which I think would be kind of tricky. But he did it very well.
The way that a lot of this was filmed was absolutely excellent. It had all these subtle nods to like the blaxploitation films in the 60s and 70s. There was a scene in particular that reminded me of A Clockwork Orange, the scene in the very beginning where they pull up on Alex DeLarge. And there was a scene that like it almost shot for shot looked like they chose to remake that scene. It was really nice to see all of that technical flair. The visual style up until that final third was excellent. I loved the way that they used artwork and the way that they chose to present their characters, and they all had their own like flavor in the way that they wore their clothes and the things that they said and did. There was so many excellent things that this film had going for it, and then it just drops the ball.
The actors weren't the problem. The story was the problem. So whoever wrote this script, I feel like they got halfway through the script and said, okay, now it's time for the drugs. The whole thing just went haywire. it takes a left turn into WTF territory that I still don't get it. Like, I feel like I said earlier, I'm not in on the joke.
If you drag in the center a little bit, that's something that as long as the ending is good, you can potentially get through and say this is a serviceable movie. But when you get to that end point and there's just nothing to be had, it's disappointing, especially for something that starts off so strong. It's frustrating, especially as someone who sees as many movies as we do.
So with that being said, this movie was half enjoyable. I walked out of the movie and I was just like, what did I just do? Like, what did I just watch? I felt weird. It was just odd. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this movie a 6 out of 10. The first half was extremely enjoyable, and because of that, I'm glad I watched the movie. But the second half was so out there, and I don't understand what they were trying to do, or the point, or the analogy, or if there was a point. I don't actually understand the second half of this movie at all. So that takes a lot away from it, because of course, what you're building up to has to be good, or you waste your time. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for this one.
Overall, I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. The majority of what brings down those points, aside from the story, is just the disappointment. I was so excited for this film, and it was so jarring to hit that wall and just run out of things to do. It's like the script was headed in a great direction, the story was headed in a great direction, and then they just were weird for weird's sake and just tried to one-up themselves over and over and over again, and it was just almost disgusting.
Okay, now it's time for the drugs. And then just started going crazy with the script because